Uh, James, one thing that I saw in the law, and I wasn't really clear if I understood it, is is mail-in voting is no excuse mail-in voting for people who are 65 and older. Is that still something that is going to be allowed under these provisions that they're talking about? That part I wasn't entirely clear on.
Yes, and that did not face any real attempt to tweak that.
Okay, because that's real important to this group because we always try to promote mail-in voting for the people who are in the senior community, both because of its convenience and also is to relieve pressure in the voting lines for for other voters. So we were saying step out of line for democracy. So that's something we want to keep promoting.
But the one of the key themes in a bunch of these bills is, as you all might remember, Harris County tried to send out vote by mail applications to all registered voters in 2020. And the authors of these bills really don't like that, and they really want to stop it. And so all these bills basically had a provision that said counties cannot proactively send out vote by mail applications without a request from the voter first, nor can they basically give vote by mail application forms to groups like the League of Women Voters to distribute to people. Even under initial versions of the bill, it was an open question whether the application could even appear online. They did eventually amend it to make it clear. But essentially, these bills would have made it much, much harder and scarier with criminal penalties attached to counties allowing vote by mail application forms to leave their office without a very explicit request from a voter first. And so when you're talking about older voters or voters with like limited internet access, limited mobility, programs like what Harris County tried to do could make the difference between getting a vote by mail application and not. And so even though there was no direct attack on the eligibility of 65 and up voters, there were changes that would have made it harder in general to vote by mail that would have affected.
Very good. Yeah, because we ourselves have been promoted. Okay, Julie, you had another question. Go ahead, Julie.
I think it's going to be probably similar to what you were going to say, is we do not send out applications to people who may be eligible to vote by mail, but we did a very strong campaign last year encouraging people to apply to vote by mail and telling them how to do it and where to get them, how to fill it out to make sure it was correct and that kind of stuff. Is that still going to be okay?
So maybe. So there were provisions making unlawful something known as paid ballot harvesting. Essentially, what that was it wasn't well worded and it was very complicated. It essentially would say that, like, if you are trying to help someone vote by mail and you are receiving payment for it, right? Like you're a campaign worker and you are like trying to help someone get a vote by mail application or fill it out, or you're trying to help them deposit their vote by mail ballots, that you would be subject to criminal penalties. And so I think if you were just doing it as a volunteer doing this stuff, you would have been fine under those provisions. To the extent that you are a staff member of something and one of your duties is to go out there and communicate stuff about vote by mail, depending on how it's worded, that might have been affected by the paid ballot harvesting provisions.